And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Schmoes Show. I'm your host, the infamous Orion, and I am drinking Kirkland purified water with minerals added just for taste.
And I'm Chiral, and I'm not.
Well, you should acknowledge today's sponsor, Chiral, Kirkland Signature Purified Water with added minerals for taste.
What are we, fucking Canadian?
Is Kirkland a Canadian brand?
I don't know. I hear them. I think it's like more of a northern North America sort of thing. So they are in Canada a lot, but they're also in like the Midwest where we are.
Ingredients: purified water, potassium bicarbonate, sodium bicarbonate, calcium citrate, sodium chloride, and magnesium oxide. There's salt in my water.
Tasty.
Nom 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 nom. Anyway, welcome to the Schmoes Show, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you know this, but a Marvel movie came out, so we're under contractual obligations with our Lord and Savior Mickey Mouse to talk about it.
And a Pokemon game.
That too.
But I think that'll be more poking fun than anything else.
I am all for it. The Emperor wears no clothes, ladies and gentlemen. Remember that. Also, if anybody wants to send charity out to Michigan at the moment, it sucks. We need a heater.
It's been wild. Apparently, I was hearing from my mom that on like the Today Show sort of program or something like that, one of their news correspondents was stuck in Kalamazoo because of the snowstorm. They're like, their plane wouldn't take off because of the weather was so bad. So there was like a national news thing that the weather was so fucked here that they couldn't get one of their broadcasters back, and they kept having to like have them tune in remotely, and they would cut over to them or some shit.
That's kind of hilarious. I am of the opinion that this is ridiculous. We have had 4 days of snow constantly in Michigan. We are at 27 inches, last I heard.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
And we were only planned to get like 18 at most.
18 at most. Like 6 every day.
It was really bad.
Yeah. Not like Buffalo, but we are still living.
And the main thing with our region, at least this time of year, is that the type of snow that we generally get in, early in the winter is generally pretty wet and it both doesn't accumulate, but it also doesn't blow around this early. And that was a really big problem for people, driving, is that because this is really light, fluffy snow, it accumulates, and then when the wind picks up, it drifts really badly and makes visibility just completely go out the window.
So, for some reason, my neighbors just left a bag of trash out in their yard, and I think they didn't go out to get it because of the winter weather being so shitty. But I can see it out there. Like, there's just a pile of snow over it because all the snow drifting over it. And I wonder if what's going to, like, hold out more, the snow or that bag. And is like, there's just going to be a whole bunch of, like, trash, like, all over their yard now.
Yeah.
So, how was your week, Chiral?
Other than the bad driving conditions, it wasn't too bad.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of really enjoyable memes coming out with the new Pokemon game that have been very much enjoying.
The memes for it are so good, and
yeah,
I'm in love with some of those glitches. I got to go to this new mom and pop store that opened up in Grand Rapids, Firehouse Guitars. And I fell in love with it. I kind of want to be buried in that store. It's just all wall to wall guitars, and I'm gonna die there. I've decided that.
Music shops need to make a comeback. There's not enough of them.
A lot of physical instruments need to make a comeback. I think the worst thing in this world is Pro Tools. Not because it's a bad program or anything like that, but just because it really took over everything. And I think it's really bad for music shops.
Yep.
Anyway, I just want to send a big shout out to Firehouse Guitars because that is a beautiful store. Go see it. Do not buy anything I want to buy because that's mine. I risked a life and limb to go to that store in this weather. So where do you want to start off today, Mr. Kyril?
Okay, I want to start off with Wakanda Forever.
Wakanda Forever. Okay, the big money maker.
I think it's going to take us a while to get through, and I think there's at least a lot to go through with it because there was both the movie itself, and this marks the end of Phase Four technically,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of wrapping up with where the MCU is and where it's going is something that I am at least concerned with.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Um, do you want to do our normal thing where we kind of go over the plot of it?
Yeah,
Hell
might as
yeah.
well.
Okay. Spoilers for Wakanda Forever, but if you were going to go see it, you would have seen it already. I'm of that opinion, at least. Um, so
We can do it without having like complete spoilers too.
fair enough. Uh,
Okay, so I'm gonna skim through the Wikipedia thing here.
yeah, I'm using that as a frame of reference as we talk
Yeah.
about this to kind of remind myself of what is going on here.
Yes. So the key piece from the start of the movie that took me a second because I haven't seen the first Black Panther basically since it came out was that in the process of that, Killmonger, when he became the Black Panther and king temporarily, destroyed all of the other of the flower that allows the right of Black Panther to be transferred to new people.
Correct. It is
Yeah.
basically a plant that is enriched with vibranium soil, so it
Yes,
is very special.
it is. So, start of Wakanda Forever opens with T'Challa, King of Wakanda, dying from an illness that his sister Shuri believes can be cured by that plant. Shuri attempts to synthetically recreate the plant after the organic versions of it were all destroyed by Killmonger, but fails to do so before he succumbs to the illness. 1 year later, Wakanda is under pressure from the other nations to share their vibranium, with some parties attempting to steal it by force. Queen Ramonda implores Shuri to continue her research on the heart shaped herb, hoping to create a new Black Panther that will defend Wakanda. But Shuri refuses due to her belief that the Black Panther is a figure of the past. In the Atlantic Ocean, the CIA and U.S. Navy SEALs, utilizing a vibranium detecting machine, locate a potential vibranium deposit underwater. The expedition is attacked and killed by a group of blue skinned, water breathing superhumans led by Namor, who is the. I guess it's fair to call him more of an antagonist than an out and out villain, I think.
He is definitely one of the better MCU villains
Yeah,
off this movie because he is very much the hero of his own story.
very much so.
Yes.
This leads the CIA to believe that Wakanda was responsible for the attack. Namor confronts Ramonda and Shuri, easily bypassing Wakanda's advanced security, blaming Wakanda for the vibranium race. He gives them an ultimatum: deliver the scientist responsible for the vibranium detecting machine, or he will attack Wakanda. And then
So, yes.
I think that sets it up well enough for the most part of the story without giving away too many of the details that actually follow in the second and third acts of it.
Fair enough. Um,
Hmm.
so Ramonda's actor, Angela Bassett.
Yes.
Did she just become the best actor in the MCU?
I wouldn't say the best. I think let me actually, I pulled up the list of all of the various Marvel phases just as a reference.
Yeah.
I think in phase four, absolutely.
Be-
It's like the bar's a lot lower, of course, but in phase three in particular, there's a lot of, I think, comparable performances where it's not quite so clear cut, but like within the context of this period of Marvel movies that we're in right now, no doubt she seems to be the most proficient at her job by far.
well, I'm just thinking about that one scene where she goes off on a character
Hmm.
about how much it kind of sucks being her at the moment, and it's very, realistically, yeah, that would suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the kind of performance I'm used to seeing in a Marvel movie, and it kind of resonated with me.
Yeah. Yep, that's fair.
Like, I'm so sorry for like the royal family of Wakanda in this movie because it must suck being them at the moment.
Oh, absolutely. I'll say that I will add for plot wise, the key motivation for Namor and his people, I don't think this goes away really anything plot wise, is that his people were first driven underwater by the original invasion of the Spanish into South Central America, where they brought smallpox with them, wiping out huge numbers of the native populace in the process. His tribe in particular was able to create a sort of cure for the smallpox that they had by utilizing a similar herb to that the Wakandans have that allows them to create the Black Panther. But theirs, in the process, forced them to live underwater.
Yes. And it's kind of interesting with Namor compared to most other people who got that plant. He
Mm-hmm.
was still an embryo when he
He
was
was.
exposed to it, making him a mutant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not gonna lie, Namor was probably my favorite thing about this movie.
I'd agree. I think in terms of like what I would consider from a typical Marvel fare, it was what I would have wanted from it. I'm not 100% on how they kind of left the door open on it. I would have rather seen a different direction taken in the end of the movie. But you know, that's always just the typical superhero stuff where you got to have the door open for a sequel with everyone and anyone involved.
Yes. Um, just Namor as a character is like, yeah, I don't want my people to get fucked over, but I will gladly fuck over anybody I need to in the process.
Yeah.
He's also pretty damn scary in this movie.
He is surprisingly powerful.
Yeah, he just like bunny hops everywhere, and then ta-da, you're dead.
Yeah. That was one of the things that really did stand out to me though, was the like I can only think about it as the too many Iron Mans problem. There were too many Iron Mans in this movie that didn't have Iron Man in it, if that makes sense.
Are you talking about the scientist character, Riri Williams?
Both Riri Williams and the uh Dora Milaje blue Valkyrie suit things.
Oh, the
I don't
Midnight
know the
Angel.
word. Midnight Angel, yes. Having both of those felt weird.
I will admit, there's like this moment in the movie where I'm like, what makes them different?
Hmm. As well as the other big problem I had was the inconsistent internal logic of the fighting. I felt that particularly the fighting was a poor element of this movie. It was better than the like full CGI fest that they had in the first Black Panther that just looked really kind of awkward, but it very much had the feeling of and this happens and this happens and this happens without any larger choreography involved with it.
So I have like three big problems with the combat and the action in this movie.
Hmm.
One, they play their action way too close, like the best parts at the beginning.
Hmm.
And I'm talking about
Yep.
that fight between Okoya and Namor's like general, where they're
Yeah,
just like fighting on the bridge, no music, and it's actually choreographed.
that was very tightly done and it was good
Yes.
because you don't have to CGI in a bunch of people flying around all over the place and climbing up shit. It's just two people going to town with their staff things.
And then they have this really cool shot, like sequence, this absolute set piece where Wakanda's kind of going through the apocalypse when Namor comes to town. And that just made me have really high expectations because that's obviously not the com- what's the word I'm looking for? Climax. I was
Mm,
thinking
yes.
of combining
Yeah.
conflict with climax. Um, so you have like these world-ending stakes because this is supposed to be like what he's going to do to everybody else after he's done with Wakanda.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of see how just generally fucked everybody is, enough that
Hmm.
um, Shuri herself decides, okay, we need to get the Black Panther back.
Yeah,
But
and it doesn't make sense though.
yeah,
Like they have the stakes set before then, and then they present what looks to be a sort of final battle scenario, and then they just stop it right in what would be the middle of the battle and go, "Okay, we're gonna come back later, give you time to do your montage." It's like, what?
Like, I do like the line he says when he kills Shuri's mother.
Hmm.
He's like, "Mourn your losses, bury your dead. You're queen now," and then walks.
Hmm.
Which
Yeah.
it's badass, but it makes no sense. Um, I also think the actual climax is disappointing
Hmm.
because it's just a
Yeah.
fight on the boat, and to be honest, Wakanda kind of looked like they were getting their ass kicked.
That's kind of what I mean with like the inconsistencies of it, where it's like you have 10 of the Wakandan people that are all the people we know that seem to be unkillable in their own right, just unstoppable forces going against hordes and hordes of Namor's people that are literally walking through the nameless ranks of the Wakandan army without a second thought. And then right before literally all of them get slaughtered, they have this separate fight over on some beach miles away, and it just makes no sense.
Yeah,
Like the average, let me see if I can find their name. The Namor's people, I don't know what their names um, are just going to town, clearly winning. And then Namor's just like, "Hey guys, I got embarrassed. Let's go home."
guys, I can't fly at the moment. We should probably go home because they rip off his wings off his feet.
Hmm.
And he's just like, okay, this is it. I should probably go home. This is my sign.
Yeah.
And it kind of bothers me because like everybody has like a character arc, but it's very fast character arcs.
Hmm.
Like,
Yes.
because Shuri's whole thing is that she kind of has to learn to embrace the future. She has to embrace the past at the same time. Which she doesn't want to do because that's where her brother is. She wants to move on from the loss of her brother,
Yeah.
but she has to kind of become the new Black Panther in order to make sure that Namor doesn't kill everybody.
Yes.
Yes, and Namor, what is Namor's whole deal? Like, I just feel like,
So the whole idea with him was that he and his people,
yeah,
every time they interacted with the surface,
yeah,
were met with famine, disease, war, or some variation thereof. So as a people, they sort of collectively decided to stay underwater, hidden away from the rest of the world, just in their own society, not messing around with that, basically forever. And it wasn't until Riri Williams' design to detect vibranium came about that there was any real threat to them being discovered. And in Namor's mind, the only way to prevent themselves from ever being further victimized by the rampant greed and aggression of the people on the surface is to basically take the fight to them first.
yes, good point.
Wakanda says, if you do that, we will stay. We're not just going to sit by because that's fucked up. And he's just like, well, I guess I'll deal with you first then.
To be fair, as a strategist, it's a smart move on his part.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, in terms of strategy, it's not wrong. It's just like, in terms of morals, it's like not wrong or not correct.
Yeah,
It's clearly an overreaction, I think, to go from we might be at risk to we literally need to kill everybody.
I also well, my big problem with Namor is that when it comes to resolving the conflict, when Shuri has him on the ground and he's like, "I am going to die now," and Shuri extends like forgiveness and wants him to kind of live because that's her character arc as well, because for whatever reason they put in this last little moment where she's like, "Oh, could I become like Killmonger? I don't want to be like Killmonger, but he says a lot of things that make sense to me now that I'm filled with as much anger as Killmonger." And then she's like, "I'm gonna like let Namor live because he is basically, just gonna cause problems for us if I kill him. So, like, what the fuck? I'm just gonna do that with like no reasoning." And then Namor is just like, "I'm just gonna go back to the underwater because I just got my ass handed to me for no particular reason." I don't know. He just kind of seemed more cutthroat than that in this movie, as if he would easily just like take a moment to stab her back.
Yeah. It felt like he kind of should have.
Yeah.
It was a weird turn that didn't make sense.
Like if I was Namor and I was unsure about my own alliance with these people, and I
Yeah.
saw like us come back to the boat and my people have their people on the rocks, I would be like, "Oh shit, we can still win this." Yeet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Especially with how they presented his motivation up to that point. He's clearly demonstrated that he has no empathy for anybody other than his own people and has no qualms with just murdering everybody in his way in order to protect his himself and his people.
Yes.
Yeah, just doesn't really make sense.
It's just weird, man. Like if Namor was like I don't know, he needed like something else other than that. I know he would rather not go to war, but he's also like I'm on the full war bandwagon as well.
Yeah. I really think, and I get why they did it the way that they did, because it's part of a larger franchise. They need to set up for stuff happening in the future. I wish that they didn't bring any of the Riri Williams or Ironheart stuff into it, because
Mm.
it takes so much time without really adding anything. You don't have to have this vibranium detector be made by her. You could easily have it just be, oh, the American or some American scientist found an old design of Tony Stark's and helped them make something. It doesn't have to be anyone in particular. And her presence doesn't really matter too greatly for that. Like, they kind of imply in a kind of fucked up way that, like, if it was anybody else other than Riri Williams, the Wakandans would happily just capture them and turn them over to Namor's people to be brutally murdered for no reason other than being a scientist.
Yeah, I would
But
argue
she's future main character, so we can't have that.
if she didn't have a name, they probably would have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just kind of weird. I would have much rather seen it be
I would have
less
rather it,
murky. Just cut out that whole shit. Get rid of fucking Martin Freeman's character. He doesn't do fucking anything in this story. He doesn't need to be here. Stop having him in the Wakanda movies. He doesn't need to exist.
no, Jax,
Just get rid of that
Cairo,
shit
Cairo.
and take that like 30-minute block to better explain Namor's motivation and his people and show. I really wanted to see cultural similarities between Namor's people living underwater and the Wakandans living above ground. Because they did the really good thing during T'Challa's funeral, where they show the buildings and the places where the people actually are, what they're doing, how they're engaging with their world in Wakanda.
Yeah.
Really great cultural details. And then when we go and we see I wish I could find a name for them, but Namor's people, it's just this literal flyby as we're whizzing past the broadest of strokes things to show, oh, they're farming, and oh, they have technology, and oh, there's a lot of them. It's very vague. And having something more solid to translate to or to reference would have made that much more interesting.
So I'm with you on the idea that I think they should have done a little bit more with Riri Williams. I would have
Yeah, like
rather,
if you're gonna go to all that effort,
yeah,
right?
I would have rather they did this thing where it was kind of like a debate between Shuri and Nakoya about whether
Yep.
they would turn her over to Namor or not. Like Shuri's like,
Yep.
"Oh, I there's someone just as smart as me out there. I kind of want to meet them. I kind of want to be buddies with this person. Imagine what we could do together." And
Hmm.
Nakoya's like, "Nah, we are not fucking with the big crazy fish man. We are
I
turning
would
the
like to present an alternative.
do so."
I would have liked very much if I gotta look at the cast here real quick. Is it Nakia? I
Yeah.
believe Nakia, who was in Belize or whatever at the orphanage, who was like the Wakandan spy person
Yeah.
who was in a relationship with T'Challa before the blip.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked it more if she didn't come in until uh, the very end of the movie, where you have it be instead of this position of Wakanda having to decide between do we give over this person or do we not? And because they seem to be kind of otherwise indifferent to the whole uh, Namor's people killing everyone thing to a it didn't like feel quite like they were treating the stakes of what was being suggested to the degree that they should have compared to it just being like the life of this individual.
Mm-hmm.
um Instead of having Shuri and Okoye go and find Riri Williams right in the beginning of it, you leave Riri out of the movie entirely. You have shit Ramonda in a quick scene like she did go and visit uh Nakia
Mm-hmm.
just to show she is still around. She is in contact with the Wakandan people, and you have Ramonda give her some sort of side mission that is not shown on screen in any great detail, just enough to establish she's still around. Hey, she was in a relationship with T'Challa. She's someone that you should know about and is going to be important to this story potentially later.
Yeah.
And then you bring that around where you find out that Ramonda, as the leader, was because then you change the position from it being based around this individual scientist to the broader concept of Wakanda being just like, hey, Namor, that's kind of fucked up. We can't let you do that.
Yeah.
And you just keep it at that level. You don't need to have it be anything other than that. Just the idea of like, killing everyone is not okay. We get that you're angry, but you gotta calm down, dude. And then he just doesn't calm down. And that's where the conflict comes from.
Namor's whole character is he just doesn't calm down.
Very much so.
Yeah.
He is pegged at 11 and he's not doing anything else.
Which is
And
so
then at the.
weird when at the end, when he
Mhm.
finally fucking calms down for like no particular reason.
Yep. The other thing that I would then bring into this is the fact that I don't think this is a spoiler to say there's only one post credit scene and it's very early in the credits.
Yes.
You add a second post credit scene where you keep the first one as it is because that was very well done. I think
Mm-hmm.
that was very good, being just like, hey, the legacy isn't done. It's going to continue on, even though all this fucked up shit has happened to your family. Then you have the later post credit scene that is still with Nakia and Shuri, where Nakia then explains what it was that Ramonda had her go and do, and that was to find the scientist. And she did find it, and hey, it's this really genius girl. And that's how they bring Ironheart into the kind of perception for a future movie. Because they did that a lot in the post credit scenes where it's just like this nod to, hey, this person exists and they're going to be coming around later.
I like that. I really do.
Yeah.
I feel
Otherwise, there's just so many characters in this and it gets really messy.
the biggest flaw I have with this movie is the first third is very hard to identify who the main character is until like Shuri and Okoye go to America.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think honestly, Wakanda Forever is a really good premise for a sci-fi movie of like this war between
Mm-hmm.
these two very different kind of societies.
Absolutely.
Like Talokan is very old-fashioned, ancient, and then you have Wakanda, which is the definition of the future. And it's such a
They are, but they're not so much, though.
I mean
I mean, they are,
they're steeped in
but
tradition. Yeah.
so is Wakanda.
Yeah.
And I think that's the great part of it is to show I wanted them to show more of how similar they were. But because we've only seen both of these cultures in passing glances, you can't make that connection other than it just being incredibly superficial.
I like that because the only thing I did feel like that connected to them is how we have the Wakanda Forever hands across the chest in an X format, correct?
Yep.
Yep. Talokan has its own little thing in this movie where they're kind of doing like the Dragon Ball Z Kamehameha.
Yeah.
Yeah. which I don't mind that. I kind of
Hmm.
like it. Problem with that is I do feel it's very superficial, and I wish it had more significance to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I really enjoy in any kind of sci-fi is when they get into the nitty-gritty and show how it is that this fictional world is both the same and different from our own. Make connections that are specific and detailed but relatable. And then you put a twist on them, right? Like with Wakanda, how they have very traditional religious elements to their culture,
Hmm.
along with, you know, traditional farming techniques that are then very efficiently augmented by highly advanced technology that doesn't serve to undermine the actions that people are doing, but to amplify them.
Yeah.
That's a really cool way of doing that. But then we just don't really see that all that much, you know?
You know what was
The
probably my
detail.
favorite scene in this movie?
What's that?
I really like that scene, like the atmosphere, the ambiance, the grandiose attitude of it. When Namor decides that Talokan is going to war,
Mm-hmm.
mainly because I love
It's
the
good.
underwater physics and lighting on that
Yep.
head ornament he wears.
Yeah.
It's just fucking epic.
I really enjoyed the early scene we talked about in the plot synopsis with the uh, CIA Navy SEALs vibranium detecting machine when they get attacked by Namor's people.
Mm-hmm.
I I wasn't like 100% on it, but I wish that I would have loved to have had that like turn into kind of like how the Doctor Strange movies do, where it just turns into like a horror movie.
It really felt like it was,
Because it felt like they were gonna do that.
yeah.
And that would have been really good. Just have like all of their people like one by one getting picked off from the water. Like all of a sudden their ship starts sinking, you know? One of those water bomb things starts sinking their ship. The whole siren call thing felt really fucking overpowered too. Like just as an aside, Namor's people do this literal sirens call that just has the people jump into the water and drown themselves, which is like, okay, I guess. Sure. But like what are you going to do to stop that, right? That's just kind of stupid. So like have them blow up the ship and then all of them are in the water just getting picked off, you know, one by one. I think that would have been a much more compelling way to showcase just the brutality and determination the of Namor's people in the same way without having it be kind of gimmicky how it got to be.
Yeah. One of the things I found really cheesy that I really loved, though, was how they would ride in on whales.
Yeah.
It's cheesy, but I love it. It's so
Hmm.
just fuck you. We are over the top.
It's good though. It's just like because you have the Wakandan people that have to like make their ships and stuff,
Yeah.
and then Namor's people is just like, "What are you talking about? Make? Just call a whale, stupid."
Yeah. Is just such a cool idea. Um, trying to think of other big points about this movie I had opinions on. I mean, I also like the Killmonger scene where Shuri goes into
I
the
did too. I
ancestral plane.
really,
Yeah.
I it's just like one of those things where it kind of got it felt like they had to trim it a little bit to have this not be 4 hours long with the way they had it paced,
Yeah.
but I did really enjoy that concept. It was very effective. It
What
just like, oh, so that's what's happening.
to me it was just this big like oh fuck moment because like
Mm-hmm.
I kind of went into it. Shuri kind of believes that the ancestral plane doesn't exist in this world,
Yeah.
even though we've seen it in the first Black Panther, and
Yeah.
it makes sense to me that the person she would probably go looking for if it was real would be Killmonger because it's the only one that would make perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a fuck you, it's real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
And particularly in, you know, in the wake of Namor's attack, her expecting to see someone very different and
yeah.
being met with the last person that basically tried to bring down their, you know, kingdom, so to say. Yeah.
I do think there is a cool parallel between Namor and Killmonger.
Yeah. And it does follow the same sort of lines of, you know, how do you it's the same theme, right?
Yeah,
Of tradition versus modernity.
yeah. Except I think Wakanda has kind of switched
Hmm.
sides compared to what they were in the first
Hmm.
movie,
Yeah.
and that's a really cool theme.
Yeah. But it does sort of it is effective in keeping the door open. It doesn't say one is better than the other.
No, it does not. It just says this is how you should handle the situation.
Yeah.
And
Also,
yes,
I can't believe they got rid of Namor's bulge.
where's the bulge cut? Can we get like a bulge cut? I mean, I'll gladly watch it rated R if the bulge cut exists.
Release the bulge cut, Feige.
Feige, you coward. I want to know who's the poor soul that had to do that. Go frame by frame and remove Namor's bulge to make it flat like a Ken doll.
Can't have superheroes be sexualized. That would just be wrong.
Oh no, not unless it's like early Black Widow.
Yeah. Or just Black Widow at all.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they got better about it as the movies went on. But like, watch Iron Man 2, first appearance Black Widow, and it's just like, oh. Overall, Wakanda Forever is probably the best movie of Phase 4.
Yes, absolutely is. I haven't seen the Thor movie yet, but I very strongly believe that my seeing it will not change my opinion on Wakanda Forever being, very much top of the pile.
Yeah. The only movie I would dare say fights it is No Way Home, which No Way Home is kind of playing by its own rules from a traditional
Hmm.
Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
what
now
do
part two.
yes.
Part two is the part where I am so disappointed that this is the end of phase four and they haven't done shit to set up any of the larger conflicts.
That's what I was about to
Other
ask.
than, I guess, Eternals, technically.
Well, I mean,
Fucking Eternals.
unless you want to count Loki introducing the King stuff, which we all know we're going to.
But that's not the phase four movies. I mean, yes, I agree. And we know that's what's going to come back around in Ant-Man
Yeah.
and the Wasp. But in the phase four movies, the only larger threat that we're shown is fucking what Galactus, not Galactus, whatever the big fucking dude is in the end of Eternals, the big robot guy.
Oh, yeah, one of the Sentinels.
Yes, that's the only larger threat that we're shown. And when you compare it to the structure that the Marvel films have set up, basically from the start, it's missing that. It's missing the larger narrative of the universe that's being built up to. We don't have an Avengers or an Ultron threat that is tying these films together. They're just their own things. And when you can only look at these films as their own sort of self contained story, it loses the kind of like leeway that you can give the other films for being part of a larger whole that build up to, a single meeting point.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that.
It really does feel like there's something missing to the cohesion of this phase. Which I can kind of understand you would want to like peel back like on the big collaborative events based off, the
Yeah.
end game happened. But it also feels like there should have been something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like even if they wanted to do like the Wakanda Forever end game stuff, like Wakanda Forever ends this phase. Even if they took some time to like set up Namor ahead of time, I think that would have been better.
Yes.
Yes.
Just give me anything.
Yeah. Like we kind of know Namor is kind of hot shit now, especially with how they
Yeah.
portrayed him as just this apocalypse causing motherfucker.
Mhm.
And it would have meant a lot more if there was like some build up to that throughout the time. Like I don't know. Like Doctor Strange could have had something like that, or like Shang-Chi end credit scene where it's like, oh, I think there's something in the water. Or Doctor Strange reads a book and he's like, oh, there's something in the water. I don't know. I feel like they could have done a lot more setup for Namor to make him this world-ending threat to make Wakanda Forever have a little higher stakes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Skimming through the screenwriters and directors, because that was something I was curious about. Like we always, they Marvel has, uh, they have a Feige, right, and
Yeah.
that helps them a lot with keeping it consistent. But for a long time, they also had directors that would come back. And it was mostly in a lot of, like the sequels to the same movies.
Mm-hmm.
But having them closer together let you, use that effectively, right?
Yeah.
And they don't really have that right now in the MCU. It's kind of all over the place.
I think Phase 4 is going to be remembered as something more experimental than it actually is because we had like a lot of really cool like ideas, a lot of really cool like directors coming out to, list contribute to the MCU. Like fucking Sam Raimi, we had
Yeah.
um I can't remember all the directors for this. Taika came back.
Taika was back. Ryan Coogler
Yeah,
came back. I believe he was yeah, he did the original Black Panther. Yeah.
he did.
John Watts has been pretty consistent with the Spider-Man films.
Depends on who you ask.
Well, in terms of like directorial tone,
Yeah,
No
I
Way Home, Far From Home, and Homecoming are all pretty visually consistent.
I like John Watts as a director, but I think he's very overhated.
I guess I would have to agree with that. I've not heard of any hate towards him, but it's the internet, so I'm
Really?
sure it's out there. Yeah.
Dude, there's so many people who are just pissed he's not Sam Raimi.
I guess that also goes to the problem where, at least in the internet, Sam Raimi is a bit overrated as well.
I agree. I think there's this real fucking problem, and I'm going to address it right now. Where people say they want something different, but what they mean is I just want more of the same bullshit. And like
Yep.
when people are like, I want a Sam Raimi MCU Spider-Man movie where he works with Tom Holland, what they're really saying is I want fucking Tobey Maguire movies back. And it's just there's 3 already. That's a lot of fucking movies for like one director to do in a franchise. Most franchises don't even get to the second movie. And I think you're getting greedy. And I think you need to fuck off.
I will say one thing that is a massive but kind of small flex here that I quite enjoy is how on the Wikipedia page here they have the categories broken up between directors and screenwriters,
Mm-hmm.
unless you are Joss Whedon or James Gunn, in which case it is you and only you.
That's kind of funny.
I find that very amusing. Where it's just like Guardians of the Galaxy 3, it is only James Gunn. He did everything.
And you know what's also something that I do find it kind of ridiculous about this part of the MCU?
What's that?
I I watched Black Widow and I feel like that led up to nothing. I haven't watched Black Widow and I felt like that contributed nothing to like my enjoyment of this.
No, it is so insular. It has no larger impact. And that's the problem with the Black Widow movie is that the only part of it that matters is the post-credit scene that has fucking the Black Widow's sister meeting up with fucking God, I closed the tab. The CIA spook with the purple hair.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Like that's the only thing of consequence that happens, and it's in a post-credit scene. Because everything that happens in it happens as like basically a prequel.
Yeah.
So you can't have any consequences. Black Widow can't die because she has to die later. Her sister can't die because she has to show up in the
Thunderbolts.
no, well yes, Thunderbolts, but even at that point we already knew of
Hawkeye, that's right.
Hawkeye, yeah, where she shows up as a side character in that. It's just like the stakes aren't there.
I feel like the way they're like pacing these is more as a giant multi-part saga like the Infinity Saga instead of the phases kind of leading up to their own things, which is really weird. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the
But it's not wrong, but then we also have that happening at the same time with when we next get to the Avengers.
Yeah. Which,
Uh,
by the way, I pulled up the schedule for part phase 5, and it seems like it's going to be
mhm.
a repeat of what we got this time as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
After watching Wakanda Forever,
Hmm.
I am less excited than I ever was before to see Quantumania
Why do you say
because
that?
it is just gonna because it's gonna be all CG,
Oh, yeah.
and Marvel's CG department is not keeping pace like they used to,
Dude, did
largely
you
because
see
of
that lack of
management
bulge?
problems. Yes, but like just simple things like the so it's not just a Marvel problem with this.
Yeah.
It's a Hollywood problem in general, where they have scenes, particularly like the underwater ones, that at least in my seeing of the show in theaters were so dark you couldn't see shit
Yeah.
when you were supposed to be able to.
I really would have
It
preferred.
feels amateurish at times.
Yeah. Talocan felt very monochromatic at times,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not how the ocean is at times. I feel like if you have like a whole civilization of people, they're going to gravitate towards the prettiest side of the ocean. They're not going to sit in the dark abyss like kind of how Namor
Yeah.
introduces himself during the let's go to war scene, which it works well because it's so dark. Also kind of felt like a Final Fantasy cutscene, not going to lie.
It very much did because this was full CG,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You can't even
The
see like the
best
actor's
part
face.
of the underwater village was the character scenes between Namor and Shuri when they're not underwater, where they're just talking.
Where they get to like know each other. Yeah.
Yeah. You're getting to see the characters, you're getting to see the culture around them, you're getting to see where it is that they are living. You don't need a montage to do that instead. It just doesn't work, especially when it's done like that. Yeah. Phase 5 gonna of course be Ant-Man and the Wasp coming up after the new year, followed by Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, The Marvels, Captain America New World Order in 2024, Thunderbolts, and Blade, with director to be announced. That's a choice.
Blade, I heard, still had a problem where it was kind of still getting through redrafted, even though it's getting shot later this year.
Mhm.
So that's concerning.
I don't know. It is just Blade is the kind of thing that I feel like we don't need right now,
I beg to
if that
differ.
makes sense.
I would prefer
We don't
Blade to be a
need
TV show,
fucking.
though.
Well, sure. I think that's fair. But we already have so many storylines that are like half told
Yeah.
that I don't think we need, like, hopefully the Marvel's gonna finish wrap up some of the stuff that we had in Captain Marvel, right? But that hasn't happened yet. And Blade is like it's the same thing with fucking Morbius. It's just so out there in terms of tone compared to the rest of the MCU.
What I feel like would be better, and this is more going back to our pacing problem we brought up earlier, is they if they kind of set up our expectations about who to give a fuck about as the main characters of this whole saga. Because like with the Infinity Saga, it was the Avengers. We kind of all knew
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, they were the ones we spent the most time with. They were the ones who got the big send off movie. But with this, it's so hard because everybody's getting a project, like a one and done project, and then somehow we're going to go to Secret Wars after this.
Yep.
I would just like some kind of idea of who the main character is besides Loki, because he's the only one that's getting multiple projects.
Well, yeah, and if you haven't seen the TV show,
Yeah,
you haven't seen Loki since what, Infinity War?
Endgame.
Was he even in Endgame? I guess technically, but he was not really there for that part.
Well, the Loki that's in the Loki TV show was in Endgame. He's the one that escapes.
Sure, I guess so, but that's more just like a passing.
Yeah,
I mean, like as a character, he was in Infinity War.
yeah.
and that was 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. Hmm. It very much it feels like they're not. We know that they're not. They have all of this planned out. What, 4 years ahead of time now? So we know that they're not just trying to like see what sticks and go with that.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of feels like it. It doesn't feel like there's a central guiding vision that they had in particularly the first two phases.
Yeah. And this all comes to light better because Wakanda Forever was a good movie.
Mhm. Yeah, it was a good movie. It just doesn't build up to anything after itself.
Yeah. Which is
That's fine.
what
It's
we
just
expect.
disappointing.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know.
that's the thing that makes Marvel so good is that you are rewarded for having seen this stuff before it. And that's what made the DC stuff flop so hard because they tried to cheat at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So now that we've spent an hour
Have
talking
we?
about that, it's almost 3 o'clock.
Oh my god, yeah. The zero timer's at 51.
Yep. Um, do you want to talk about the Pokemon stuff while we're still kind of in that sort of like pop culture mood?
Hell yeah.
So I assume you've been playing it.
Yes. I've not been playing as much as some people in my friend group, but I've been playing.
Yes. What are your thoughts? I
Pokemon.
haven't been playing it,
Yeah.
to be clear.
But
I have not.
you have seen the memes.
I have very much seen. I've been enjoying the shit out of the memes. So it is. I disagree with a lot of the directions that Game Freak, and the Pokemon Company have been taking the games. So seeing it in such an embarrassing state is exactly what I've been hoping for.
I wouldn't call it an embarrassing state if you're on the inside of it,
Oh,
but
I would.
yeah.
This is. It's not like a bad Pokemon game. These are the kind of technical and issues that I would consider bad for any game. It's the same kind of stuff, like almost verbatim, that Cyberpunk had,
Yeah.
where they clearly, in the case of Cyberpunk, didn't have enough time, or in the case of Scarlet and Violet, clearly don't have a big enough team. Or Game Freak is not big enough to be keeping up with the schedule that they have, and the games have always been kind of cookie cutter, cut and paste in the past, and they
Hmm.
were able to patch over it for a long time with how simplistic the games actually were. Like Red and Blue have technical issues, but you have to really find them to do it. And you can break the game in half if you want to, but in the casual playthrough, you're not going to run into these problems. And that's kind of how the Pokemon games have been for a long time. They have problems, but if you're playing the game, right, you're not going to see them. And from everything that I've been seeing lately, this turns the corner into not really being avoidable, even if you are playing it, correctly, so to say.
Yes. Um, I think there's something appealing about the Pokemon franchise on a very simplistic level
Yep.
that, and this just kind of proves my point with this release because it is buggy. It is very buggy. There's we actually know where the bugs come from, by the way. Um,
Yes. Has that been confirmed? I've heard I heard the sort of rumors that you mentioned. Has that been like actually confirmed by anyone?
according to people who have been hacking in there and playing with the
Okay.
ROM, yes, it is confirmed.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
these Pokemon games have a problem with the memory in the game. The memory is supposed to store like everything around you so it can easily pull up that stuff for later when you're playing. But the problem is
Yep.
it doesn't know when to say no to the stuff and just delete it to put in new stuff in there. So instead of actively rendering where you're at in the game and then replacing it with new stuff later, it's holding the old stuff on top of it. And so when you have this issue of if you play the game for too long, it will start running slower and slower and get buggier and buggier because it's using all that memory to register everything you've done, every place you've gone to. So while it's trying to render the area you're in right now, it's also trying to render an old area you were previously in. And
Yep.
that's what's causing the performance issues. It's
Assuming that that is the problem,
yeah.
it should be a very quick thing to fix. And I bet that the situation they have is that the Switch dev kits
Hmm.
probably just have physically more memory on board than the retail units do. Because if you're a developer, you want these kind of problems to be able to happen and not be game crashing so that you can see them and then fix them without having to, completely have the game crash and lock itself, right?
Hmm.
So you overbuild the dev kits to be able to account for that. But it then feels like they just didn't have the time or didn't have the QA time to find these bugs and then go in and fix them, because it's the kind of thing that really should not be happening as consistently as it is.
Yes. And I think, well, the good news about this is that it only happens if you play for a while.
Mm-hmm.
When you start the game up, it's at its most stable. And you know what I think really has been happening is people have been binge playing it since the beginning, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when it has all the cutscenes. It like front loads all the cutscenes at the beginning, and then gives you openness for the rest of the game. And
Okay.
obviously, when it's rendering all that and it's already got the memory issues, it's going to get to the bugginess a lot faster in the beginning than later in the game. Um, so a quick reset is going to fix that and just clean out the RAM. It's going to clean out all the memory issues, and then you'll start out pretty stable. Um, so even with this huge bug in there, I think it kind of says a lot to the simplicity of these games and like just Pokemon franchise in general that it still works. Like not like the necessarily the game itself working at the best of its capabilities, but the general design and format of the feedback loop of the game.
Sure.
Yeah.
The changes that they made to the gameplay with, like, since Arceus, the
Mm-hmm.
Arceus Legends game thing, are good, no doubt. Is definitely the kind of stuff that the franchise has needed to have it actually feel like a modern game compared to what they were doing with just like moving the camera
Mm-hmm.
with Sword and Shield and Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu.
I will say this: I feel like there is a feedback loop on the internet right now where it's very easy to complain about it. And if you have complaints, far be it from me to say you need to suck it up because it's your money and you need it now. You spend it however you want to spend it. But I've also seen like it's a love it or hate it kind of situation. Can you look past what's right in front of you and to a larger experience? I've been enjoying it. I've had a lot of fun. It's not the kind of game I like binge play a lot because of like the glitches going on in there, but it's a fun way to spend an afternoon as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is
that
exactly
sounds fair.
what I walked in expecting. And I think there is a lot of outrage to it that just gets a lot of attention. Like, have you been to the Pokemon subreddit?
I've seen some of it pop up from time to time, but not like actively. No,
Oh,
I
if you
can
go
pull it
on
up
there
here if
right
you
now,
want.
it's just a whole bunch of people saying how they returned the game, and I'm like, okay, that contributes nothing to
Okay,
this.
yeah, no.
Congratulations on getting your money back, but just go fuck off somewhere else. It's like not even constructive at this point. And I do think it is a symptom of just pushing these things out too fast. I'm very scared of the future because I
Yeah.
think this is kind of pushing it as far as I'm concerned.
Mhm.
Um, but we will just have to see how they react to this.
Yeah, one thing that is, I don't know, the games review space right now
Yeah.
feels completely bankrupt after seeing the scores that the new Sonic game was getting. Um, but it is encouraging to see that this one is apparently reviewing lower than previous games, because it should be.
Yeah.
It has serious problems that make it so that people can't play it in the way that they've played all the games before it. Um, yeah, a lot of this feels like an overreaction, though, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're not gonna stop making the most profitable franchise that has almost ever existed in the gaming space just because a handful of people return their games to GameStop out of spite.
Yeah. I mean, like, Do you do whatever you need? Because like I'm all for
Hmm.
consumerism. The
Oh
consumer
yeah,
should be heard.
yeah. And if you don't believe that you got the product that you expected to,
Yeah.
and you would like to return it, and you're within your return window to do that, absolutely go ahead. But like, I see what you mean though with some of these posts. Like, it's not gonna do anything to change Game Freak's response, especially when people have been buying this crap for the last what, like whenever they started going to like this every year, every other year release schedule.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a new. These aren't new problems. They're just finally gotten bad enough that people can't ignore them.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a lot of fun to a buggy game like this, and buggy games even have their place in the world. Um, it's just kind of I'm not bored by the game. I'm bored by the feedback.
Yep.
Yeah. I will also say this is one of the few games I've ever seen crash on a Switch.
Yeah. It is definitely surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Because isn't it supposed to use the same engine as Breath of the Wild or something like that?
No, it doesn't use the same engine as Breath of the Wild.
No.
It's just a
Okay.
updated version of the Arceus engine.
Okay. So people, I guess I saw people commenting on that, and they must have just been making comparisons because uh, the visual similarities are pretty striking.
Yeah. Like from what I understand, and I'm kind of surprised I know so much about how what this game is like underneath the hood, but I guess just the general vibe of this has been, you know, a big point of discussion. Um, so under the hood, this game functions way different than a typical open world game does. Your average game world will load up zones where you're at, and then that zone will be fully rendered as long as you're in that zone. And as soon as you move out of it, it will unrender it and go into the another one. What we have here is that the game renders as you go. It doesn't render the zones ahead of time. It will just render like you're while you're walking in that distance, and then it just keeps it behind you, as we know with the memory issue.
Yeah.
So it's not operating like a traditional open world game should.
No, I think it is. They just don't have it set to dump the information quickly enough.
That too.
Is the main thing. Either something is holding on to information that it's not supposed to, or they just set the parameters so that the point when it starts to dump old information isn't new enough. Like, and it is definitely an open world problem
Yeah.
where, traditional video games have discrete zones. That's why you have loading screens. When you get rid of those loading screens, you have to get pretty tricky with it. And that's why with the PlayStation 5 is so particular with the memory that it uses because it's fast enough that it allows developers to basically skip loading screens and have stuff be loaded around the player in such a large enough area that you're never going to run into like the fog walls that we used to have in
Mm-hmm.
the PlayStation 1 era,
Yeah.
right?
I also think a lot of the glitches do come from the online play. So, two things the internet loves doing: playing online and playing for long periods of time. That's where you get a lot of these glitches, as far as I've seen. And I think that's probably because the game probably keeps a track on where the other players are relative to you. Maybe not rendering out the areas, but definitely keeping track of where they are on the map. And that leads to a lot of glitches.
Apparently, I'm just skimming through the subreddit right now. They changed how clothes work from Sword and Shield.
Yeah, the clothes are weird. So it's a school setting, so they kind of just give you
Yeah.
preset uniforms to go through instead of like picking an outfit.
Oh, that's so dumb. That was like
Yeah.
by far the best. That was like the only real innovation in Sword and Shield is that you could change your clothes with pretty damn great variety of customization. Like, you had a lot of options.
So you still have a lot of options in this one, but like the main clothes are stuck to the uniform choices. So like you can wear a lot of
That
hats, you
sucks.
can choose a lot of socks, shoes, backpacks, and gloves,
Well,
but you're
sure, but you could change the whole outfit before.
yeah, I know.
Like, what the hell?
I will admit it is something I'm not fond of.
It feels really like a step back.
It feels
Man.
like it's a development issue. Like they couldn't take time to
Yeah.
like model full
I re-
clothing.
could take the time to model the full interiors of buildings either, from what I hear.
Oh, dude, they're just menus.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah. You just
That was
open the.
always, it feels like they traded off the open world exploration and got rid of the more traditional exploration that have been in RPGs, where you just go around the environment and talk to people and look at things and look at books and, check every trash can because you found one Pokeball once. That kind of shit.
Yeah. It really
Mm.
is like a mixed bag. And like if I was just judging this not as a Pokemon game but as like an open world,
Yeah,
probably not the best. I will say
sure.
that the best open world games are probably like the Xenoblade series, just by
Hmm.
comparison to this, because they do a lot more with a lot less.
Yeah. It steps in the right direction, but it feels like, one step forward and two steps back at times. I
I
really, I, I grew up with the GameCube,
Yeah.
we've had Pokemon Colosseums, Guild of Darknesses, and it's really nice to see real 3D Pokemon games, not just 2D games with a wonky camera angle.
Hmm.
That's real innovation for the franchise, and it's good to see. But I can't get myself to spend, $60 on these games with the state that they're in and how lackluster so many of the aspects are.
I'll agree to that. Um,
Yeah,
I enjoy it. I think I'm getting my money's worth. I just
that's
did.
good.
I think it's a taste thing as well. I'm not
Yeah, for sure.
much of like a hardcore gamer, so I think a lot of these issues don't bother me as much.
Hmm.
Um, I also think that
So I'll say I'm not by
yeah,
any means a hardcore gamer either. I just have expectations that have been set by the industry as a whole,
yeah,
that for a long time Pokemon was able to side skirt by being its own thing,
hmm
and that now it's trying to follow a more mainstream game design perspective. It is failing to meet the standards that its predecessors have set because it's no longer just being able to be compared to itself.
yeah. I also have a thing I think is different from most people, where I kind of go in without expectations for most things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kept me pretty safe from like online hate culture, is just avoiding expectations.
Mm-hmm. It's fair.
Yeah. And other,
Finally,
yes,
I want to talk about what the hell is the naming with these legendaries.
Miraidon and Kiradon.
No, fucking Wo Chien, Chien Pao, Ting Lu in Spain.
Chinese audiences.
What the hell is this? It's
Approval by the
just so
Communist
out
Party.
there. It's so wild and makes no sense.
I get it.
You can't name the flamingo Flamigo
It's Flamingo
and
and
then
Amigo.
call the fucking cow with a bowl on its head Ting Lu. It does not make sense.
No, it makes perfect sense to me, dog. I don't know what you're getting at.
Also, did they get rid of like the thing where they have the nicknames? No, they do have it. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I saw an early Pokedex where it, yeah, okay, they do have it. It just didn't have like the full data from the game yet. So like uh Sprigatito is the grass cat Pokemon,
Yeah.
that sort of shit. It didn't have any of that, and I was like, no way they got rid of that. That's just like completely meaningless fluff, but it's part of like the lore of the game.
It's
You can't
charm.
get rid of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nah, they all have
they still have
nicknames.
that. They do. Okay, moving on.
Yo.
FIFA and Qatar. Oh my goodness.
BRB gonna use the bathroom while you tell this story. I'm so upset.
So man, it's so fucking stupid. Um, Earlier this week, it was announced by, I believe, the government of Qatar that, in contrast with the contracts that they had made with FIFA for holding the World Cup, one of the main sponsors of FIFA, Budweiser, would not be allowed to sell alcohol openly. They were not going to allow the public sale or consumption of alcohol anywhere in Qatar. If you were somebody wealthy enough to have like a private booth or a private event somewhere, you could still do whatever the hell you wanted there. But if you're just in the stadium, you can't buy alcohol, you can't bring alcohol, you can't drink it. This is the kind of thing where, I guess, to back up even from there, this isn't the first controversy that's come up regarding Qatar holding the World Cup in this year. From the very start, it was met with confusion, to say the very least, because unlike the feet of snow we have on the ground here, it's the middle of their summer, and they're holding an outdoor football competition, outdoor soccer competition. So there's immediately the location and logistics concern that make no sense just at the base level. Then you get into the usual FIFA crap with not so thinly veiled bribery and corruption. And it came out following that in order to construct the massive stadiums and buildings required to host and house the World Cup, they were using what is effectively modern day slave labor, which isn't new to Qatar, to be clear, but it is a new spin for the World Cup and FIFA being related to it. And it was met with outcry at the time. Thousands of people have died in the constructions of these stadiums, and nothing happened then. So I guess nothing's probably going to happen with this one as well. But at the last hour, we got the announcement that uh, Budweiser, alcohol in general, wasn't going to be allowed to be consumed, and it brought up a new round of people just being sort of generally pissed off about the World Cup being held in Qatar at all. And there's been a number of actual responses that have come from it. Would have been nice if these were coordinated a bit earlier than this, because having it come out after it was announced that you can't have alcohol in it is pretty dumb, given the much more serious issues that happened beforehand. But there is people sort of starting at least to boycott it. Germany, in particular, has had numerous groups and organizations that are related to FIFA and the World Cup be very vocally against the participation in it. And there's been a huge number of bars in Germany that have officially agreed to boycott the airing of the World Cup for its entirety, which is good. There's been large demonstrations at football tournaments in Germany itself that have been very visibly and vocally against participation in the World Cup. And while it is probably inevitable that their players are still going to go to it, um, the people that are actually watching it are in large numbers making their opinions on this clear. So naturally, in order to respond to that, FIFA's president Gianni Infantino made a statement at a news conference in Qatar, and it was in incredibly poor taste and helped nothing. So this is coming from, because it's the kind of thing that was so insensitive. It sounded fake almost, but multiple reporters on the location of the World Cup at this conference confirmed that this was said. FIFA president Gianni Infantino, in response to the outrage at not just the most recent controversies regarding alcohol, but Qatar's prominent position in general. Infantino, quote, "Today I feel Qatari. Today I feel Arab. Today I feel African. Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled. Today I feel a migrant worker. I know what it feels to be discriminated. I was bullied because I had red hair." It's very fucked up.
Oh
And
boy,
it
can't wait to.
sounds
Oh.
fake, right? It's so dumb that it sounds fake. But by all accounts, it's actually what was said.
Oh boy,
Fuck
just got
FIFA.
back from the bathroom to come back to my podcast. I hope nothing cringe gets said on there.
Yeah.
Why the fuck would you compare all those things to being red haired?
It makes no sense.
It,
It is just so fucked up.
one of these things is not like the other.
It's a running joke that given the rampant corruption amongst the FIFA officials, that if they were given enough money, they would host the World Cup in North Korea. And it wasn't really until I think we're seeing the horrible things that have happened in Qatar to make this World Cup happen that people have kind of realized that that's not that much of a joke. North Korea just doesn't have enough money to pay the bribes yet.
Yeah, no, I get it.
The latest update on Qatar being a kind of stupid place to hold a global international sporting event meant to bring the world together. Jewish organizations are claiming that Qatar has broken its promise on allowing any cooked kosher food to be sold at the World Cup and is preventing the public display of Jewish prayer.
That's a bad.
Yeah,
Nothing else to say on that. I can't believe we're
it's
going the Kanye West route on this.
it's deeply fucked up.
Yes, it is. Anything else of note with all this Qatar bullshit?
Not so much.
Mm.
Um Oh, we should go with the other Nintendo news that you linked earlier this week.
I linked more than the Nintendo news?
Yeah, I mean it's tangential to Nintendo, the Yuji Naka stuff.
Oh my shit. Yeah, yes.
Former Sonic team head and Ballin Wonderworld director Yuji Naka arrested over insider trading at Square Enix.
Man, it's almost like he ruined that game on purpose.
I don't know. Let me pull up the actual article here. I We all knew after seeing Ball in Wonderworld that he was morally and creatively bankrupted, but this is a new low.
I mean, I don't know about you, man. Ball and Wonderworld looks so original. It's so weird to me that this game just keeps on giving us more and more bullshit. Will we ever be truly past Ball and Wonderworld?
I don't think so.
No.
We live in a post Wonderworld society, and we can never go back.
It's like 9/11 for gamers.
Never forget.
Never forget.
All right, let's talk about Twitter.
What about Twitter this time?
Okay, I guess we should start at the beginning this week, where Elon Musk presented an ultimatum to what remained of his employees. That was basically you have 3 days to respond. You have to choose either work crunch hours, as much overtime as we deem necessary until we deem it to no longer be necessary, or leave now and take 3 months severance. Would you guess how many what option a lot of people chose?
The smart option.
Mm-hmm. I saw a video from a half dozen relatively senior developers from Twitter, was a total of something like 50 years experience working on the app, who were at the Twitter offices waiting for the countdown of when that time period ran out, celebrating like it was New Year's of their not responding to it.
Why did he think that was a smart idea to give an ultimatum like that? Do you want to work terrible hours for a time, or have 3 months paycheck and go find a new job?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like an obvious decision. Um,
You take a
the,
workforce where you established no good faith among the workers with
mhm.
a new management. You take a lot of things like you start picking off people one by one. You start making them realize they should probably look for another job, and then you give them a fucking opportunity to go get another job with like no consequences. I don't
Yep.
get. I don't get it. What you looking at, my friend?
Just thinking about where to go from here. So
Oh,
I guess we can just keep going with the the updates that happened, and then we can talk about where it goes from here.
oh God.
So on Friday, Elon announced that there is a new Twitter policy of freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. Negative slash hate tweets will be max deboosted and demonetized, so no ads or other revenue to Twitter. You won't find the tweet unless you specifically seek it out, which is no different from the rest of the internet. And in the same announcement, a number of people who were banned for impersonating Trump have been reinstated, among other people like Jordan Peterson. And at that point, the decision to reinstate Trump had not yet been made. Would you believe that didn't last very long? I'm actually
I
curious to see
mean,
how long it actually did last.
wasn't that like one of his campaign promises?
I mean, kind of, but then as soon as he came in, he said that he would be forming a committee to decide whether or not that was actually going to happen. And then that didn't happen, I guess.
Well, it sounds like more money to spend. He doesn't have that much money, dude.
I'm gonna find. Yeah. So we went from 1:30 on the 18th to not even 6 hours before he put up the poll because naturally in a sane decision the only way to determine whether or not somebody who violated your company's terms of service and used your platform to incite an insurrection in their own country would be to have a Twitter poll to decide whether they come back, right?
Yeah. Isn't this the same guy that said he wasn't going to buy Twitter because of all the bots on there?
Yes. Yes, he did.
And he thought this was a good idea because,
He's very dumb and a liar.
and people think he's very smart because,
They are also very dumb,
and liars.
and they think that having money means somebody is smart or successful, even though neither of those are true.
Dude, money is the meritocracy of the world. It's the ultimate equalizer. I don't know what you're getting on about.
So yeah, Trump's Twitter account has been reinstated, but it's not quite that simple. Um, I had to do a bit of digging on this because there's of course been a lot of outrage towards it, and I think understandably so. The fact that it happened at all is very dumb and shouldn't have happened. You know, and even if you look at like the Kathy Griffin stuff, it shouldn't matter if you're a former president or a celebrity or a fucking nobody. If you violate the terms of service, an agreement that you made with a company to use their service, and the penalty for that violation is to have your account suspended, your account should be suspended.
Mm-hmm.
These aren't government services. Twitter isn't even like top three for social media services. It's not a freedom of speech violation to not be able to post on Twitter. So the outrage over it, while not unfounded, seems to be jumping the gun a bit, right?
Yeah.
To that end, though, it is currently unlikely that Trump will be returning to Twitter himself or posting in any of the near future. And I did go out and confirm that even though his account has been reinstated, he hasn't posted anything at all.
Maybe he forgot the password.
I wouldn't doubt it, honestly.
Wouldn't that just be fucking hilarious?
That would be amazing. So, with the current state of Truth Social, the social media platform that Trump has been using, basically since he got removed from Twitter and Parler imploded, um, he apparently has an exclusivity with that company that the details aren't like 100% publicly known, but the gist of it is that if Trump wants to make a tweet that is not related to a political campaign or political campaign financing, which is majority of what he tweets is not related to that. Truth Social has a 6-hour exclusivity window where it has to be on Truth Social and nowhere else for 6 hours before Trump can post it to other social medias.
Which is really weird. I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand why you would agree to that.
Because he's not as rich as he says, and I bet they're paying him pretty well to stay there
I
because he
guess.
keeps the people that follow him there as well. And then they get their advertising dollars from the My Pillow guy.
Conservative media is a weird industry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah. Like, I kind
Stupid
of.
people preying on stupider people.
It's like an Ouroboros, really. I I don't know.
No step on snack.
No step on Snick. No tread on me. I don't know. I would love to see like an in depth of what their business model is because it does not strike me as something that's very sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Uh, uh, it only needs to be marginally profitable. And it's the kind of thing I remember Linus Tech Tips, Linus Sebastian, Luke Lafreniere, they do their podcast, The WAN Show, where they were talking about their video streaming platform that they started, Floatplane,
Okay.
which is not meant to compete with something like YouTube, but is more meant to be like Patreon, but specifically for video content, where people can go and pay a certain monthly amount to creators that they want to support and get access to either exclusive content, but primarily high quality video. So high resolutions or high bit rates. And they've started to branch out into some streaming type services. So another YouTuber I follow, DankPods, who does like music stuff, iPods, headphones, um, started to do drum streams on Floatplane because he was unhappy both with the customer service of places like Twitch and YouTube, but also with the bitrate quality. It's garbage.
Mhm.
If you're trying to like do like actual serious music presentation things, having such a poor quality for the actual audio itself just doesn't really work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So for something like Truth Social, you can remain profitable while having a user base that isn't too big. Once you get into the point where you're servicing, it's like a threshold, right? Because the cost to provide an internet service isn't linear. The change of going between the bandwidth that Twitch has to handle to the bandwidth that YouTube has to handle. If YouTube's twice as big as Twitch, they're not just paying twice as much. You have to pay, incrementally more. And that continues all the way down the scale. So for someone like True Social, it could be profitable enough for them to just run a bare bones sort of infrastructure situation where they're basically catering to one very specific but relatively small audience, so long as they don't accidentally get bigger than their hardware can sustain.
I see how it is. Start
Yeah.
cheap, keep cheap, try to maximize the cheapness. Am I right in understanding that?
Pretty much, yeah. As long as you can, as long as you don't get too big accidentally to the point where your service starts to fail with the sort of like, relatively entry level setup that you have, the cheap, cost efficient stuff, especially for a platform that's, the vast majority of it's just text.
Yeah.
You can get away for a long time, or you can get away with not spending a whole lot for a long time compared to your much larger. It's even hard to call them competitors at that point, right?
I believe they're gods at that point.
Yeah, yeah. When you're Facebook and you're literally running out of people to sign up for your service, economies of scale.
Meta is such a weird company nowadays because, like, if they just want to make the metaverse a thing, just go fucking to game development and stop trying to do this like half-z shit.
Ah, yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, they're like just. I think they know that they wouldn't win in the game industry, but they're trying to like corner into that casual market so hard to like try and get a footing, but they're not putting the effort needed to get a footing in there. You know?
Yeah, it seems pretty clear that the games industry isn't what they're interested
Yeah.
in, right? They're targeting pretty specifically more like productivity, workforces in particular. Google has maintained their Google Glass stuff actually for a very long time, and it's been in places with uh, need for the augmented reality stuff in a workplace setting. You can still buy Google Glass from like a workplace perspective, even though you can't really do it as just an individual consumer.
Mm.
If you can convince corporate America that not only do they need to give all of their employees $1,000 laptop, but a $1,500 VR headset, someone could make a lot of money.
Yeah. But
That's where I think it comes into, and the metaverse, VR, all that bullshit is just a means for them to convince shareholders that it is a good idea when it realistically isn't.
I'm glad I'm not a shareholder.
Huh? Rich stay rich.
Rich stay rich. Isn't it weird to be in like the information age and everything is just like so apparent that the differences in how we perceive culture compared to those above us in the social standings?
Mm,
It is such a weird time to be alive.
it is.
The only thing we don't know about the rich anymore is what they taste like.
Thanks, keep up. Find out pretty soon.
Ooh. If you could eat one rich person, who would it be?
Eat one rich person?
Yeah,
Uh, I don't know. I feel like it would be someone like Bezos.
really.
Yeah.
He seems like he'd be tough though.
No, but I mean, I feel like you have to compare social impact versus actual flavor.
Mm. Okay.
Like when you get into someone of that scale, removing them is the point more than the flavor, right?
You see, I look at
But
this
when you
man.
get all the way to the point of like Zuckerberg, you're just never going to be able to get over the flavor.
Mm, I don't know. I look at these pasty ass white boys, and I think that they would taste like a mayonnaise if you took a bite into them. Like looking at this picture of Bezos I dug up. Shit, my phone is not letting me post it. Shit. Bezos, stop it. He, okay. You see this picture of Bezos I dug up on the internet.
Yep.
For some reason, this tells me this would look good with hot sauce.
Okay.
Yep, that's all I'm saying. I just think he does not have much flavor.
But everyone does. Everything does.
Yeah, you're right. So, any other topics on the news?
Any other topics? There's a couple of them. The big thing that came about with the Twitter stuff that I found particularly amusing was that in a stroke of genius, Elon decided that after telling his employees they would get 3 months of severance for just checking a box no, um, they closed their offices for this weekend just as the World Cup is starting. And while some people are going to be boycotting it, the vast majority aren't.
Hmm.
And uh, the infrastructure is, questionable as to whether it's going to be maintained or not. The reality is that most of it's just the internet being the internet, making things up, and that the actual physical infrastructure of Twitter is supported by Amazon Web Services and not the actual Twitter engineers themselves. But it is amusing to think about.
Isn't it? Wasn't there like a real like concern over this weekend where everybody thought Twitter was going to crash at any second?
Mm-hmm. And it was unfounded.
Yeah.
There's no real reasoning behind it because, like I was saying, it's the Amazon Web Services is the actual backbone of it. What Twitter and its company does is make new features to a degree. Things can still break that might need specialists' hands to help fix it. But of all of the Twitter outages that have happened, they've not been because of things done at Twitter themselves. It's been because of larger internet infrastructure outages or something like Amazon Web Services going down for an unrelated reason.
So that's how we attack Twitter through Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious. I've never actually gone on to Amazon Web Services to see what they offer. Let's see here.
It's pretty boring. It's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm just guessing they offer the server space, then you just attach
Yep,
your server to their server space for maximum storage.
pretty much. They handle the actual internet traffic, and you pay them a fee to do so.
Hmm. Oh, you can get started for free. I do not expect this kind of service in this scale to be free.
Yeah, that's how they get you.
Yeah.
A lot of the companies like that start free up until a certain point, and that was one of the big things with the Apple Store and the Google Play Store that was a problem for a lot of developers. Was I remember on the Apple Store in particular, Apple wanted to start taking more of a cut from smaller developers that would make it basically unprofitable to operate there. And they had to go back on that and say, well, okay, basically, if you're not making $1 million a year, we're not going to touch you because you're not big enough for us to give a shit.
Damn. I love how all these fucking apps on their AWS server all says Amazon in the front, completely defeating the purpose of putting them in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
Oh well. Anything else, my good dude?
We have one movie that we talked about last week, but is now officially out and is doing well.
What movie?
The Fablemans, the Steven Spielberg sort of autobiographic, but not quite movie.
Hmm.
Paul Dano, Seth Rogen, Michelle Williams. Currently a 94% from critics with over 100 reviews.
Yeah, this is the time of the year when they really start making the critical darlings come out, huh?
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be pretty stacked for the coming weeks. Next, Knives Out movie is going to be coming, along with the Disney Strange World. There's there's a couple that are sort of vying for that holiday space.
Hmm. I need to. I still haven't seen the original Knives Out, to be
Oh,
honest.
oh, it's good. You should see it.
Looks
Did you
good.
see a trailer for a movie called Violent Night by chance at your theater?
I've seen it while working out.
Okay. It looks amazing.
No, it looks
It looks
awful.
dumb.
Yeah.
It looks awful, but it looks amazing because of that.
I do not.
When a team of mercenaries breaks into a wealthy family compound on Christmas Eve, taking everyone inside hostage, the team isn't prepared for a surprise combatant, Santa Claus, played by David Harbour. Santa Claus is on the grounds and he's about to show why this Nick is no saint.
Ugh.
I love it. It's so dumb.
It's dumb. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I need something else. I need more.
I want to see Santa waterboard someone.
Oh shit, that'd be so funny. And as he's waterboarding them, he like takes them a moment to pause and ask if they've been naughty or nice this year, and they say nice, and he's like, "Wrong answer, ho ho ho," then starts waterboarding them again.
Yeah. I'm sure it's a terrible movie, but I kind of want to see it because of it.
Oh, I'm almost certain it's a terrible movie. I'm sorry. What gave the impression that any of this was quality? Is Spielberg directing this one?
So, who is directing it? Let's see. Anybody knows of? It's Tommy Wirkola, known for nothing.
All I can do is
Oh, he
impress
did
us.
the Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters movie. Yeah.
Oh,
Do you remember that one?
I do remember that one.
Jeremy Renner.
Jesus, is that Jeremy Renner app still up?
I have no idea.
Let's see here.
It was
Oh,
such a
shut
shit
down.
movie. I kind of love it though. I think this is going to be the same way, where it's just like, let's take a premise and then completely pervert it. Like Hansel and Gretel, they hunt witches.
How well did that
It's
movie
great.
do?
Oh, it was terrible. 16%, I think I saw. I can pull it back up to double check. Yeah, 16% critic score.
Hell yeah. That's
Let's
what
see
I
some
want
of
on
these
my
reviews.
Hawkeye.
Vampire Hunter, this junky offering is equally hopelessly unnecessary.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Have you ever read the plot of this?
Of the Hansel and Gretel one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dumb.
This is something else, man. I'm sorry. The first thing that I come over when I skim through the plot is the word insulin. That Hansel has magic induced form of diabetes. He needs a shot of insulin for every few hours or he will die.
15 years after Hansel and Gretel defeated the wicked witch who planned to have them for her dinner, the siblings have come of age as skilled bounty hunters. Hell bent on retribution, they have dedicated their lives to hunting down and destroying every witch still lurking in the dark forests of their homeland. As the notorious Blood Moon approaches, the siblings face a great evil, one that could hold the secret to their terrifying past.
Why did this movie make $226.3 million?
Because it's called Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, and people wanted to see what the hell was up with that.
What the fuck? Okay, I'm going to read another paragraph because this is just another word jumped out to me. You'll know it immediately when I say it. The siblings battle Muriel before she stabs Hansel and abducts Gretel to complete her long due ceremony. Hansel wakes up with Mina, who reveals herself to be a white witch. She heals him again and uses a grimoire to bless his assault weapons. Arsenal of weapons. Hansel and Mina and Ben disrupt the Blood Moon Sabbath. Mina slaughters the dark witches with a Gatling gun, while
Yeah.
Hansel frees the children.
Hell yeah.
Fuck. What is this movie?
Mm-hmm. It's schlock.
No. This looks like Citizen Kane, my dude. Whoa, 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 whoa. Deadline Hollywood reported on October 14th, 2015 that
It was
Paramount was...
produced by Will Ferrell.
I'm done.
I didn't catch that. That's too good.
Paramount was planning a Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters TV series. It is possible this series may be ultimately be produced in place of the proposed sequel. I hate this.
Wait a minute. Do you know what happens in the extended cut?
Go on, what's the extended cut, my dude?
In the extended cut, aside from additional profanity, gore, and sexual content, and a few extra lines, the extended version features a few extra scenes. In one scene, Berenger blames the mayor for the witch's attack and murders him in public. The scene where Berenger and his goons assault Gretel is also extended. It occurs between the scenes where Mina heals Hansel and has sex with him, and shows that the men plan to rape Gretel right before Edward kills them.
Why? I want to know why.
There's no reason for it.
I found Hansel and
Honestly,
Gretel Get Baked. It's a pop movie that came out the exact same year.
it went straight to DVD.
Yes.
It's amazing.
And it was produced by the Twilight Saga film producer. Why do we exist? Is it purely to spite the absurdity of life? Or is it in accordance to the absurdity of life? Neither, I say. It is purely because we need to watch the next installment in the Hansel and Gretel film cinematic universe.
So yeah, Violent Night. Go see it. Take your children.
Oh my god, I forgot we were talking about that one as well.
One other thing that I thought was kind of gross, actually,
Yeah.
on the Rotten Tomatoes page for Wakanda Forever,
Yeah.
it shows you a Visa or a Mastercard ad along with their rating. Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah. I'm sure there's no bias involved. Send you a screenshot.
Wakanda may be the richest and most profitable country in the planet. We wouldn't be anywhere as advanced and as rich without our sponsor today, MasterCard.
Yeah, it just seems weird.
It's unnatural and I don't like it.
Let's sponsor the score box. Like, what the hell?
Anything else that you would like to touch on while we still have the mic on?
That's all I got.
Okay. Well, I'm the Officer Ryan, and I'm disappointed with humanity.
And I'm Cairo, and I've been a Schmo.
And this is the last you will hear from me.